Hello, good morning, Miss. Yes, there we go. Hello, good morning, Miss. I'm sorry, my webcam it broke down yesterday, so I'm not able to record myself, to film myself, as I usually do. But I can definitely record my voice. I hope that that's not a problem. But here we go.
Décadas, en Chernobyl sucedió el accidente nuclear más grande de la historia.
A little bit more than 3 decades ago, in Chernobyl, there was the biggest nuclear accident of the human story, of the human history.
Hubo una radiación 100 veces peor que en las bombas atómicas de Hiroshima y Nagasaki.
There was a radiation 1,000 times worse than Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Y millones de personas sufrieron las consecuencias.
And thousands of people suffered the consequences.
Pero ¿qué fue realmente lo que pasó? ¿Cómo está hoy el lugar?
But what did actually happen and how's the place nowadays?
Antes de averiguarlo, no te olvides de suscribirte a nuestro canal y de activar las notificaciones.
Before finding that out, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notifications.
Actualmente, cuando escuchamos la palabra Chernobyl, pensamos directamente en el desastre en la central nuclear.
Nowadays, when we think of Chernobyl, we directly think about the nuclear plant.
Su construcción comenzó en 1972 y llegó a tener 4 reactores nucleares en la década del 80.
Its construction started in 1972 and it got to have 4 nuclear reactors on the decade of the 80s.
Cuando se convirtió en la central nuclear más potente del mundo.
When it became the strongest and most powerful nuclear plant from the whole world.
Además de la planta, se construyó también una ciudad para albergar a los trabajadores, llamada Pripyat, que llegó a tener 50.000 habitantes.
Besides the plant, there was a city that was also built in order to house the workers, and it got to have more than 50,000 inhabitants.
La planta quedaba a unos 14 kilómetros de Chernobyl, a 3 de Pripyat y a 120 de la capital ucraniana, Kiev.
The nuclear plant was located 14 kilometers away from Chernobyl, 3 kilometers away from Pripyat, and around 120 kilometers away from the Ukrainian capital, Kiev.
Además, estaba muy cerca de la frontera con Bielorrusia, que en realidad fue el país más afectado por el accidente.
Besides, it was very close to the borderline between Pripyat and Belarusia, which was actually the most affected city of this accident.
Aquel 26 de abril de 1986 pasaría a la historia por la tragedia.
Chernobyl will become famous on April 16th of 1986 because of this tragedy.
Estaba planeado que se realicen unas pruebas de seguridad en el reactor 4.
They were planning to test certain security measurements in the reactor 4.
Pero todo terminó de la peor manera.
But it all ended in the worst possible version.
El resultado fue un sobrecalentamiento del combustible y la destrucción de la base del reactor.
The base of the reactor was destroyed due to the overheating of the combustible.
De esta forma, a la 1:24 de la madrugada hubo 2 grandes explosiones. En la primera voló el techo del reactor y se trató de una explosión química. La segunda, que llegó a continuación, fue nuclear. Tuvo una potencia equivalente a 300 toneladas de TNT.
In this way, at 1:24 a.m. in the morning, there were 2 explosions. The first one, it was an explosion that destroyed the roof of the reactor, and it was chemical, and the second one was a nuclear explosion that was equivalent to 300 tons of TNT.
Entre las causas, se puede señalar que los estándares soviéticos de seguridad de aquel momento eran más laxos que los occidentales.
Now, it can be said that the security measurements of that time were a little bit more short comparing to the ones that they had in the Occident of the world.
Y por otro lado, que el experimento se atrasó, por lo que lo encabezaron los trabajadores del turno noche, que eran más inexpertos.
And also they think that this experiment was delayed due to the change of personnel. They had less experts personnel from a different shift.
One of the atomic reactors at the Chernobyl atomic power plant near the city of Kiev was damaged, and there is speculation in Moscow that people were injured and may have died.
Los primeros que se encargaron de controlar el desastre fueron los bomberos de la zona, que
The first that tried to control this disaster were the firefighters of the place.
apagaron el incendio. Sin embargo, en la base del reactor había combustible que seguía ardiendo.
They extinguished the fire. However, in the base of the reactor, there was some combustible that was still on fire.
Al mismo tiempo que se controlaba el reactor, se comenzó a actuar sobre la población para prevenir posibles contaminaciones.
At the same time that they were trying to extinguish the fire, they took certain corrective actions with the inhabitants in order to avoid a certain type of contamination.
Al principio, las autoridades soviéticas trataron de esconder los problemas, pero la comunidad internacional advirtió la situación.
At the very beginning, the Soviet authorities tried to hide this situation, but the international community made the world to be aware of it.
De hecho, fueron los suecos los primeros que se dieron cuenta.
The first word that something was seriously
Actually, the Swedish people were the ones who found out firstly.
wrong came from this power plant in eastern Sweden, where workers coming on the job registered abnormally high levels of radiation on their bodies.
El viento que sopló en dirección noroeste llevó los materiales radioactivos hacia Escandinavia y
The wind that was going to northeast took the radioactive materials to Scandinavia.
luego hasta casi toda Europa, incluidas las Islas Británicas.
Then it was taken to almost the whole European continent, including the British island.
You can be sure that the decision to disclose was made at the very highest level. Probably it took several days for the Soviet leaders to decide how to handle it.
Recién el 2 de mayo las autoridades soviéticas decidieron evacuar Pripyat. En total, fueron 130.000 los que dejaron sus hogares.
On May the 2nd, the Soviet authorities decided to evacuate Pripyat. There were more than 130,000 inhabitants that were evacuated.
Con la ciudad ya vacía, llegaron unos actores claves, los liquidadores.
With the city getting empty, there were some main characters that got there, the coalitiors.
Fueron unas 600.000 personas, muchas de ellas reservistas del ejército,
There were more than 600,000 people, some of them were part of the army,
que se encargaron de extinguir el infierno radioactivo que quedaba.
that were in charge of extinguishing the radioactive hell that was there.
El 6 de mayo pudieron acabar con las llamas del reactor y comenzó una nueva etapa.
On May the 6th, they were able to extinguish the flames of the reactor and a new stage began.
Para evitar que la radiación se siguiera expandiendo por la atmósfera, construyeron un sarcófago de hormigón que envolvía al reactor y lo aislaba del exterior.
In order to avoid letting the radiation spread among the atmosphere, they created a cement wall that isolated the place from the exterior.